because it's just taking three things that you know and see in everyday life and putting it in a humorous way.
Wait, did you just say you think your work is humorous?
It's humorous, it's like quite ha funny one. It's like it's popcorn, then it's tea, like quite funny one.
Hi guys, Annette here and welcome to Becoming Friends With. This is a show where I invite you guys to come down and join me in becoming friends with a very special guest. So today we're very socially distant, unfortunately, but you know, it's still going to be a very fun day. And today, for our very first official episode, we have local designer and sculptor Lim Xuan, also known as QimmyShimmy. Yay!
Thanks for having me.
So for those of you who are watching this and you haven't heard of QimmyShimmy, right? So she's actually a local sculptor and definitely the most polarizing local sculptor, I would say, because she's made waves not just locally but internationally with her very hyper-realistic, creepy but cute sculptures. But today, you know, we're gonna get to know the artists behind all these crazy works. So right off the bat, I'm just gonna ask a question on behalf of the people who are tuning in and do not know your work. What is something you would say to somebody whose first reaction is ew?
I think the thing about social media is that it's just so difficult to censor or like filter what really comes to you. And I know that my work is not always comforting to people who look at it. So part of me is like, I don't really blame them for feeling that way, but then choosing to express it and to hurt the people who like them, I think that's a different case. I do feel that it is okay to have a very emotional and instinctive response to my work that is not positive, but choosing to be unkind with the words is a little bit like, okay, maybe you should just move on.
So do you usually respond to your haters?
Nowadays I don't. I feel that there are people out there who would try to change the minds of others, but I feel that like regarding my works, it is also valid. Like there is nothing wrong with the way they think, and it is not my responsibility to change the way they think. So I think that we should be open about people who disagree with you.
So it doesn't really affect you?
I think it's only when it gets really bad or when it starts to spread ideas that it's not about my work. Usually the people who hate on my work and come onto my Instagram to hate on it, they probably encountered my works in a fake news context.
Oh, is it? What kind of fake news?
So I do have like my work spreading in adrenochrome. So it's basically like all these pedophile rings, like conspiracy theories, all these things out there, and they associate my works with it. I feel that if you are a person that reads real news, you will just find this completely unbelievable. But for people who live in the environment, to them it's very believable, like all these conspiracy theories. So they will come onto my Instagram already hating me for things that I'm not guilty of. And I think when that happens, then I would have to delete these comments, because I think these comments would be sort of dangerous to people who have not really encountered all of these things. As much as I believe in free speech and stuff, but it's still my Instagram, so I have a little bit of control over that.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's a nice balance between doing what I'm comfortable with and protecting my own mental health, but still giving people that space to express themselves.
True. You know, I actually watched like a documentary where you were talking about your work, then like it showed you like making the artwork and everything, and there was this hate comment. I was just like, is it real babies? I'm like, there's literally a shot of her sculpting it. Like, speaking of letting people interpret the work however they like, because I read that every time people ask you like, oh, what's the meaning behind your work? And then you always say that there's no meaning. And my question is, why you don't want just smoke some reason, you know, like, oh, it's about the fragility of life?
The honest answer is that usually when I create my art, it's sort of like visceral, right? Like it is a very visual kind of using two elements, sort of familiar in life, but then once you mesh it together and create a juxtaposition, it becomes really strange. I think for me, that is my approach to creating works, and I don't really come from the perspective where I'm working with a societal issue, an issue that troubles my society. It's a very visual approach. Because of that, I feel that there is no need to pretend that there's something more to it. But I think what is really the beauty of it is that when people look at these things, they start to see a lot more than what I actually intend to create. So it was only after I see, oh, people are actually seeing a lot more than what I can say about it, and I sort of realized that my work becomes more powerful because of this dialogue. I feel that if I say, it's almost like giving an answer sheet. It's like once it comes from the artist herself or himself, then everyone else who doesn't think like the artist is wrong. And I don't like that.
You don't want any right or wrong
exactly.
interpretation.
Even like for these people who, you know, sort of think that my art is satanic, there is a way that they are responding to it that is not that I can understand it, but it is their right to sort of like see in that way. I guess it's fine. I don't have to pretend to be more intellectual than my art actually is.
No, so I was actually speaking to Tishan just now because you're also a full-time designer. Maybe you can share a little bit more about, you almost think that your design work has more meaning than your art?
Because a lot of people often think that if you're an artist, then your day job is basically your bread and butter. Your aspiration is to quit that awful day job and then, become a full-blown artist. But for me, it's sort of different. So I work as an experienced designer. And what I do is like very utilitarian, service, user-centered sort of design. So they're not like the pretty graphics or like very, very sexy looking robot design and motion graphics. Like that's not what I do. Like what I do is like talking to people and then understanding their needs and then designing with it. So I think they are really so vastly different, and I think they're fulfilling and I love them for very, very different reasons. I always say that if I were to purely just do art, that it will be a part of me that will be missing, because I can make all these things that satisfy me, but then after that it's like, so what? Like what does it do for society? What does it do for people? How many people can actually understand and appreciate it? Whereas like design is a little bit more of a, you are designing for like to impact the mental society. I feel that there is a need to balance both of that.
Actually, right, I knew Tishan since secondary school. She was my art senior and she was drawing like storybook illustrations and stuff like that. Very cute things. What made you like suddenly change from illustration towards sculpting?
I think the content-wise and tonality-wise, I think I just mature as a person. But then in terms of like medium-wise, I think illustration has always been a medium that sort of like spoke out to me, because I like that sort of in between reality and fantasy sort of realm. And I think illustration has always reached out to me in a way that I felt that I was able to create those worlds. But at the same time, I felt very, very limited. But then once I started sculpting and it started to fuse into like real everyday objects, then I realized, oh, this is exactly the medium that I want, because I am working with real objects in the first place. Like how unreal can that be?
Like you're making that fantasy like so close to reality.
So the very first work that I did was actually the baby heads in the pistachio shell. It was like completely accidental. It was Chinese New Year, then we had all these pistachio shells around, and then I just like cut. And I thought it was funny. I put it online, and I realized that somehow I found my language from just that small little accident. And I realized that okay, like this is what I need to do. I need to create my works, but I need to find a way in which it fits into something familiar. And the language just sort of like broke out from there.
Was that your first like viral work?
It wasn't very viral. I had very little traction like at that point.
But how do you start getting viral? Because your social media following on Instagram is huge. So like how did people discover?
I think I was quite lucky because at the point when I was making a lot of works, there were a lot of like these online accounts that were doing this curatorial where they plug in a lot of like different things from all around, because they have a very good visual eye and they brought everything together, and then they had these very successful accounts that have like close to 1 million following, and they were like properly taking and crediting artists. My works were picked up by a lot of these accounts. Because of that, I managed to sort of like got an audience that liked my style. So it's not just about having your work on media, because my work has been on like mainstream media. But I think when it's on mainstream media, I really get that 50-50 divide. There are people who are a bit like, and then there are some people who are like, oh, that's cool. But it's still 50-50. And the kind of people that will actually be like, okay, I'm going to follow your practice now, is very little. Whereas for this kind of websites, they are already reaching out to an artistic audience. So most of them will be like, oh, that's really cool. Like immediately you just sort of like reached out to an audience that will already be appreciative. I was just really lucky to
that and the fake news articles.
Actually, it's quite weird because the fake news articles.
Do people discover your work because of the fake news articles? So right?
Yeah. So it's bad publicity, it's still publicity.
Yeah.
That thing is really real, because there are some people who are like, I saw that conspiracy theory and then I came to Instagram and realized you're not actually like the satanic person that they paint you to be, and your works are really cool. So they stayed and became like followers because of that. But I really have to wake up to 50 over comments of like puking emoticons.
Oh, serious?
Yeah. Sometimes it gets really bad.
Okay, so for those people who really like your work, what do you think is it about your work that they really identify with it?
Most of the people who appreciate my works, they often kind of tell me that it's because I managed to find that balance between what is traditionally kind of gross, but at the same time manage to make it palatable. It's not highly intellectual. You don't need to be super aware of what's going on in society to understand it, because it's just taking 3 things that you know and see in everyday life and putting it in a humorous way. So
wait, did you just say you think your work is humorous?
It's humorous, but it's like quite funny. It's like it's popcorn, then it's teeth. Like I think it's popcorn, but then it's teeth. Like quite funny.
If you think about it that way, like no, I don't know. I just thought I thought it was funny that you say it was funny. Okay, speaking of funny, right? I actually have this question that was sent in by a fan/friend, right? Have you ever thought of when you have kids, how are you going to explain your work to them? What if they're like, Mom, why you make such weird things?
If that really happens, I would just probably explain to them that the world is so rich because people think differently. And it's so rich because everything exists on such a big spectrum. And sometimes we cannot understand this full spectrum. But it's important that we accept it and we tolerate it, even if we cannot appreciate it. So yes, it might be strange to you, but then it is not strange to me. And you should accept the fact that I like to do it. It's a little bit like, if the kid, right, is happens to be stranger than me, I think I also have to find it in me to sort of accept it.
Actually, everybody is strange to some extent.
Like this person can be really normal to me but very strange to you. It's so much about perspectives, right, that I feel it is more important that we learn to live with the diversity.
And not just a question maybe about this specific artwork, but what if they ask some other question about something else that's weird in this world? You still have to give them an answer. Okay, I'm gonna ask one question. So recently there was this survey on Straits Times like a few months ago where they surveyed 1,000 people about the most essential and non-essential jobs in Singapore. Okay, it was in the COVID-19 context. Basically, artists were last on the list and we were the most non-essential to these people. I think I do understand that we won't be the top few essential people. What are your thoughts on that?
To be honest, I think this question, right, I can answer it with two different hats. I'm an artist, but at the same time, I am also a design researcher. And I think when the news came out, a lot of people around me were very critical of how that data was being presented. So so there is this big question about, of course, if you give me that list in this current context, like that's how I'm gonna rank it, right? Because it's not like they suddenly think the artist is the most useless, then they write artist down. That was not the case. They were given sort of like 20 different occupations and they had to rank it. And it was just, the artist was the last one in terms of these 20. And even the term itself, artist, is so ill-defined. Like it was not even like properly defined. And I feel that it is not about the people. Like people started blaming, they must have interviewed all the wrong people. They must have asked the questions wrongly. I don't think it was that. I think it was just data that was sort of like presented and interpreted in a way that was sort of like swayed to what the media wanted to create, the kind of like idea they wanted to create. And I think if people actually spend time to read the article properly, it really wasn't meant to shoot artists down.
Which exactly, because my question when I saw it was actually, they didn't even need to show the bottom 5 on the list because the aim of the survey was to find out the top 5. Would you say in Singapore, people aren't really educated to see art as something, extremely important or anything? Like, what was your experience like in school?
At least for my personal experience, right, I think studying art, I knew it was a privilege. So growing up, I think ever since I decided to go through the journey of becoming like a professional artist or like a professional designer, it was something that I knew that a lot of people didn't have access to. And I was able to do it because I was lucky, and my parents sort of like, they belong to the generation where they have to take jobs that sort of were practical and were able to bring in money so that their children have access to the education that they want. And I am that lucky generation that managed to access like a degree that I knew is not going to bring in like heaps of money, but it fulfills me in a way that's different. It fulfills me in a way that I'm able to pursue ideas and expressions that were important to me. By doing this, I am not going to give back to society in a way that a doctor would, or a lawyer would, or a construction worker would. And people need to accept that. Like, no one's gonna clap for you and like give you a lot of money because you're an artist. Like if you're gonna if you're gonna take that choice, then you need to realize that the fulfillment needs to come from you. They cannot be so butthurt about everything. You already have the access to be an artist and have people listen to you. When the whole article came out and people were very angry, then I was like, honestly, this article is not really about you. Your problems are not the core. As in the context of this article, I think that's important. But then I still do think that art and design is undervalued in Singapore.
Yeah.
And, there are ways to change it, but the ways to change it is not by whining like a baby.
You were saying that you feel fulfilled in a different way when you do art and stuff, right? Yeah. So what is something you think art has taught you about life? Anything else would not have taught you?
I think most of it is the fact that there's so much potential in creating things that are new. I think it's very overwhelming now for like artists of this generation and beyond, because like we have social media. Before you even become an artist of your own, you're already surrounded by so many artists that have like done so much amazing things. And I think my journey as an artist, I really managed to find that amidst all these amazing things that are out there, you can still find a voice that is unique to yourself, and you'll be able to find people that sort of listen to you. And I think that's sort of the beauty of it, that the world is noisy and the world is crazy and complex, but then if you were to just offer a bit of yourself, there will always be someone who is willing to hear it. And I think that's kind of the my journey as an artist, because I really didn't expect, I didn't like wake up one night and say I want to be a sculptor. I sort of like gradually
Experimented with different mediums and stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
So I didn't like tell myself, okay, I'm going to become like a popular artist that's going to show my works in other countries. It was a very gradual type of like discovery and really reacting to problems and things that I encountered in my own journey and slowly grow into who I am today. That is the thing that art can offer you, that your voice can be that unique.
You were saying that, it took you a bunch of experimentations and stuff like that to get to figuring out your style of work and even getting your art sold and everything. And I would say that's really the definition of being a very successful artist, right? But along the way, confirm, you have seen failures in your life. And I think as creatives, we see so much failure before we even see like successes. And people just don't see it because when you show your work, you always show your best work. So maybe you can share some failures you've faced in this whole process of finding your art and how it has shaped you to be who you are, or how it has actually maybe have been a catalyst to helping your success also.
Like this entire journey that I had, right, it wasn't like with very big kind of failures. Like there were just a lot of like small things that I have to like realize, whether it's a technical kind of learning, like, oh, actually I shouldn't bake it like this because I just burned up the whole microwave. Or like it can also be like things that are a little bit more like conceptually, like, I am constantly feeling very stuck in this realm of my works. Like it's almost like my style and everything is like set so clearly that sometimes I feel that, okay, maybe I am not mature enough yet. Like I shouldn't have created these boundaries for myself when I've not reached that point of maturity yet. So I think very often I always have this like very existential questions of whether like I'm doing things right or wrong. But I don't see them as failure because I always think that life is really just about making decisions, and there's no such thing as a bad decision. It's just that you make a decision and then you just have to react to it all the way. It's not really a failure unless you don't learn from it. If it sucks and if it's terrible, people scold you, then you just take it and then you just continue and use it as a learning and move on ahead. I don't know whether I just like shut out all this like bad things that happened to me, but then if you ask me failures, I really cannot really think of one thing that really changed my life. I won't say that it was always rosy, but I would just say that I didn't see them as like pitfalls.
Like that time when you lost your brother in art competition.
Oh yeah. It's not a failure, it's a glitch in the system. So basically when I was quite young, like I guess in kindergarten, my mom used to send me and my older brother, like he works in the banking and finance industry, so not very artistic person. She sent both of us to art class. They have this annual arts competition, like painting competition.
At the void deck, right?
At the void deck. So very, very old school, like just think of it as a like very artsy type of thing. And both of us actually painted and he came out first and I came out second. So every time when people ask my brother, like when my friends or his friends ask him, so I guess your sister has the artistic genes of the family? And he will be like, no, actually I'm more talented than my sister, but it just happened that I am smart and I have other things that I'm also better at. So I decided to, become a banker, and to my sister, stay as an artist.
But I'm saying, you see, even in a situation like that, like, did you ever feel like, I'm not good enough?
No, it's a glitch in the system. Because he's 2 years older, why are we in the same competition? It's obviously unfair.
It's unfair.
So you see, there are no failures in my life because I'm optimistic. And
yeah, that's true though. You are very optimistic.
But no, okay.
I love that optimism. I would be so bummed out. Like, what the heck? Lost my brother. Give up, forget it.
A very good mentor of mine taught me at work that as an artist or a creative, it's very important that you strike that nice balance between humility and confidence. You need to be a humble narcissist. So you need to believe in yourself and believe in your voice that it is unique enough for the world. But at the same time, you need that humility to know that there are people better than you and there is always a learning in everything. So once you're able to like balance both of that, then you can become a true creative. If not, you'll just be like either too...
Yeah, you'll be... Either end of it is terrible, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, because you don't want to like, I'm not good enough and then just forever like wallowing in that self-pity, but you also don't want to be so like big-headed that you're like, I'm the best in the world.
Yeah, exactly.
And you'll never learn and grow, yeah.
Having that tool is just extremely important to just continue doing stuff that are new and different.
Oh, I love that. Okay, last question for me. What's advice you give to a young person who's an aspiring artist?
When I get questions like that, I find it very difficult to answer just because every aspiring artist is so different.
Like everyone's journey is different lah.
Yeah, and everyone's place and everyone's personality is different. That like I don't think that there is such thing as a generic advice. And if it's too generic, it doesn't help them anyways.
Yeah, it becomes just like one of those cliches. Like, live today like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah. Hard to answer your question, but I guess like I'll bring back to my previous point lah. Like self-awareness is very important. So when you are creative, right, know where you are at and what are the things that are stopping you. Like if you find yourself too like defeated, like you know how you would react if your brother won first and you won second, then you need to know what are these other traits that you need to counter yourself so that you are a more balanced individual. Then if you are too proud, if you find yourself very hard, like unreceptive to feedback, then maybe humility is what you need to learn. I think usually having awareness is extremely important for our creators. Before you can create, like just spend a lot of like time, whether it's months or years, just understanding yourself and what are the things that pains you, excites you, and just having that awareness first would really help you in just finding your voice before you can just become the artist that you are.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I'm going to be directing some questions actually to Madam Noor, who is our art teacher back when we were in secondary school. So Tisha and I went to the same secondary school and we had the same art teacher, and she's here today and we're reunited after 15 years or something. Yeah. We actually caught them meeting for the first time just now, so that was super awesome. I don't know, how do you feel now knowing that, you know, someone you taught art to has become an artist?
Sharing with Chishen just now, I think it's very surreal, you know, because I read about this artist, QimmyShimmy, and her baby hit sculptures. I remember how it evoked certain emotions and reactions from me. Okay, it was only later that I found out that QimmyShimmy is actually my ex-art student, Chishen. So art is supposed to create this response, right, from the audience. If not, then you have to seek to understand what's the role that it's playing. So I'm super proud that Chishen is an accomplished artist today. And you know, yes, there is a certain reaction that she gets that may be very negative, okay? But I want you to remember that not everyone has to like your work. Not everyone has to agree with your work. And you have to be very comfortable with it. Yeah, that's what you're doing, which is very good.
Aww.
Words of wisdom.
Yes. Alright, so we've come to the end. Thank you so much, Tisha, for coming down today, and for all of you for joining us today. So, you know, one of my favorite things about hanging out with a friend, right, it's always like when we have a good conversation, then at the end of the day, you know, you feel inspired or you feel that you learned something new. And I hope that was the experience for you guys today, and I hope it's the same for everyone who's watching online. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next episode of Becoming Friends With.